How's it going, guys? Welcome back to my channel. I am back with another video, and today we're going to talk about balance and how that differs from people with autism versus people with neurotypicals. If you're new to this channel, be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on those notifications because I don't upload very consistently, but when I do, I provide very important information. And without further ado, let's get into this video. So this is from a site called Skills for Action. I'm going to put the link in the description as I always do. So it says autism and motor abilities. Understanding why a child has motor difficulties is the first step to helping them improve their fitness, growth, and fine motor abilities. Children on the autism spectrum often have difficulties with posture, balance, coordination, and motor planning. In fact, recent studies show that movement difficulties are very common in children on the spectrum, and more importantly, poor motor skills are associated with greater difficulties in social communication. That's an interesting correlation there. I've never really noticed that personally. So the reason why autistic children have motor difficulties are four reasons. Differences in brain writing, brain wiring, difficulties with prediction and anticipation, joint hypermobility and low muscle tone, anxious and fearful temperament. So we're going to get right into each one of those. So in regards to difference in brain writing, learning a new motor skill depends on the brain's ability to form rich connections between the different parts of the brain involved in controlling movement, including the ability to use sensory information from the environment and from the body to predict what's going to happen next, to plan actions, and adapt the actions as needed. Typically, developing children make these brain connections and learn new motor tasks easily in the course of everyday experience. They are motivated to take on new challenges, explore different ways of achieving their goals, and expect to master new skills with repeated practice. This gives them a sense of self-efficacy and I can do. That's very interesting. I've definitely experienced that, especially not motivated to take on new challenges. It's something I struggle with. But like mastering new skills with repeated practice, that's something I'm a big fan of. Children with autism and those with developmental coordination disorder do not learn new motor skills in the same easy way, possibly because of differences in the way their brains form new connections. And here's how this affects motor skills. Motor skill performance and learning depend on forming rich connections between different parts of the brain that link sensory information from the body, sensory information from the environment, and intentions, goals, and feelings. This information is used for predicting what will happen next, planning movements to achieve goals, executing the movements, and evaluating the outcome. Was I successful? Did I achieve my goal? What needs to improve? Because of all the differences in how the brain is wired, children with autism do not easily integrate all the information needed for task learning, may use different pathways which are less efficient, and may need extra practice and guidance to learn new motor skills. And I've definitely experienced that before. However, given the right opportunities, all children with autism can improve on their motor skills. It just takes time, patience, and know-how. So that was very understandable to me. I think it does take a lot longer to learn because I'm still working on it. I think it's going to be a lifelong struggle for me. It probably is for a lot of people, but you can always improve. That's what the message is. So how differences in the brain wiring affect... Movement difficulties related to anxiety and attention issues. So this is interesting. This is where they make that connection that I didn't expect. Good motor control is learned through experience, okay? Typically, developing children spend a lot of time working on learning and improving motor skills as part of their everyday activities. They explore different ways to achieve a goal, persist in the face of failure, and learn from their mistakes. Through lots of repeated experience, young children learn how to use sensory information to plan and adapt their actions to achieve their goals. Autistic children are not as good as exploring different ways to achieve a goal, have difficulty sorting through and selecting the right sensory information for a task, and are not as good as learning through experience. So yeah, for different ways of achieving a goal, that's something that I've dealt with a lot, and apparently it has something to do with movement. I'll have to reread it and see and like really let that sink in. But we're gonna go to movement difficulties caused by joint mobility. Although there is no research that has looked at the prevalence of generalized joint hypermobility, GJH, in autistic children, anecdotal evidence suggests that it is a fairly common feature. GJH simply means that the child has joints that are more flexible than usual. Okay. I'm not very flexible, so I don't think this applies to me. This happens when the connective tissue, which makes up the joint structures, is more compliant than usual. Muscles are also affected, with a tendency to weakness, called low muscle tone. Hypermobile joints are less stable than usual. This means that the child needs stronger muscles to support the body. Fortunately, strength training will improve both of those things. The increased compliance in the connective tissue also affects the blood vessels and internal organs, which can lead to low blood pressure, trouble with bladder control and voiding, and constipation. Interestingly, children with joint hypermobility tend to have a fearful, anxious temperament, which affects their behavior. So I guess that kind of relates to ADHD, which is a condition with similar symptoms, and yeah, I get that. Like a lot of the the movement that goes on with that can lead to hypermobility. So how that affects the motor function, let's find that out. Joint hypermobility affects the development in several ways. Because the joint's inherently less stable, more muscle work is needed for good posture and movement control. Children with joint hypermobility often have difficulty sitting erect for working at a table. Hypermobile finger joint affect pencil grip for drawing and handwriting. Leg weakness affects walking and running. And loose joints, some tight muscles. In addition, children with GHC often have some tight muscles in the hips and shoulders. This affects sitting comfortably on a chair or cross-legged on the floor, as well as shoulder movements needed for drawing and handwriting. Oops, skip forward a little bit there, hold on. Okay. So now we move on to night pain, which is something that I've actually experienced. Children with joint hypermobility and tightness in the hip muscles often experience pain in the legs following exercises. That is true, or when they are going through a growth spurt. I've experienced both of those. Children with autism often have an increased tendency to respond negatively to discomfort. That is true. I hate being uncomfortable, which can make night pain related to exercise very bothersome. It certainly is. Yeah. So toe walking and hypermobility. This is something that I really struggle with. It's the main reason why I tend to be off balance a lot is because I work very poorly on my toes and my feet. Toe walking is associated with tightness in the calf muscles as well as the muscles crossing over the back and sides of the hips and legs. In most cases, children who walk on the toes have hypermobile joints. The toe walking is probably more related to muscle tightness along with poor motor planning, rather than be a sensory issue. Children who walk on their toes often have tightness in the muscles. They stand with their legs wide apart and the feet turned out. This is something I deal with, and it's unconscious too. It just randomly happens. But I've noticed that like looking down, that's what it is. This tightness makes it uncomfortable to stand with the feet close together and the heels flat on the floor. or to walk with the heels flat on the floor. Depending on how tight the calf muscles are, a program of stretching exercises will improve toe walking. Interesting. So now we move on to the final section of the article, which is called low muscle tone. The problem with the term low muscle tone is that it is a bit of a catch-all idea. It seems to mean different things to different people. So it's basically relative, like which is high and which is low. Mostly it is a box into which any movement difficulty can be thrown without really pinpointing what the underlying causes of the difficulties are. In many cases, the underlying reason for the appearance of low muscle tone can be attributed to, as we just mentioned, joint hypermobility. The distinction is important because it affects the choice of remedial activities. Movement difficulties caused by joint hypermobility are improved by exercises that improve strength and general fitness. So basically, you gotta get swole in order to improve balance. Alrighty guys, that's going to do it for the video. I hope you enjoyed and you found this helpful. If you did, please like, subscribe, and share, and I'll see you in a couple days with either a personal story or advice video. Depends on how I'm feeling. Peace.